Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. We'll get started in just a few minutes. Um, Thanks very much for your interest in learning about the Ignite program. We're really excited about the second iteration of this program, and we've got lots of exciting updates that have, been building on the initial program, and excited to share some of those today. We'll give a few more moments just for people to trickle in, and we'll get going and go over some housekeeping items and try to answer all of your questions. Um, I assume that if you're joining us on this call, you're interested in applying, or maybe you're trying to figure out if the program is for you, or maybe if there's a different program that would be a better fit. And so all those things will get talked about today. We'll go through the actual application as well. And then at the end, we've got a few tips and tricks that we're going to share to help maximize your chances of success, because we do appreciate the extra effort of you joining us today. So I'll dive in just a few moments. I'll go over a couple quick housekeeping items. So you can use either the general chat to submit questions, or you can always send us an email at ignite@kabi.com. If it's a more specific question to your own circumstance, trying to get a ruling on eligibility or things like that, we can always give you a bit more of a tailored answer over email. But if you've got kind of general questions, any clarifications, please just do throw those into the chat, and we'll make sure to get to as many of those as we can. Probably won't take the full hour, famous last words, but probably 30 to 45 minutes of some content, and then we'll save some time for questions at the end. So we'll dive in just maybe another moment or two. We've got our team standing by as well to help answer questions as we go through the content. Um, I can start off maybe by introducing myself, as that's not too important at this stage. But my name is John Suckling. I'm the Senior Manager of the Innovation Office at Kabi. My colleague Ty Redublo, who, if you've been in touch with us over the last month or so while the application's been open, he's probably the one that you've heard from. And so the two of us work closely on this Ignite program. We do have a number of other individuals on our programs team. We're a team of about seven, and we work cross-functionally across a lot of Kabi's programs, and we'll talk about what those are. And basically, our role is we're not the decision makers on what gets funded, but we help to coordinate the program operations. And so part of that is to make sure that applicants, such as yourselves, have all the answers that you need to understand how and if to apply, and then if so, how to maximize your chances of success. We don't want innovators, to waste their time applying if it's not the right opportunity. And so I think a quick no is sometimes more valuable than a maybe. And so if this maybe seems like it's not the right fit, then we can totally redirect you to either one of our other programs or one of the partner organizations. And so Ty and myself are here to help. So we're going to start just with a little bit of background about Kabi, which I think helps set the context for what we're talking about with the Ignite program. So for those of you who maybe aren't as familiar with the organization, Kabi's mission and vision is written here. So our vision, a world where every older person lives a life with purpose, fulfillment, and dignity. Our mission to drive the development and adoption of transformative aging and brain health innovations, specifically through this program. That's really quite pertinent as our mission statement. A lot of you will know that we're embedded and based within Baycrest Health Sciences in North York and in Toronto. And so we share, a lot of the knowledge and expertise that's come from that organization over the last 100+ years of providing excellent care to older adults. And we are the innovation engine with a mandate that exceeds Baycrest and is pan-Canadian and at times global. And so really we are trying to find the solutions to support them in the right way to help get them out into the world where they can be used and change the lives of people who need them. And so our programs and services kind of evolve over time. And so this just gives a bit of a glimpse of to some of the programs that we launch and that we have active right now. There's some new programs that we're excited to share in the new year. But Ignite is what we consider to be our early stage funding program, right? So supporting early stage innovators, which is both research teams and companies, and we'll talk about that, to develop and test their innovative solutions. After Ignite, we move into the fuel cohort, and that's where the funding changes from non-dilutive to dilutive for companies. So we're making investments at that stage. And for the research applicants, that would stay as grant funding. So that wouldn't quite be the change. But we have some kind of maturity metrics that would help bifurcate whether you're in Ignite or in Fuel. And we'll touch on those in just a moment. But the Ignite program flows into Fuel. And then we have a couple of different programs that we're launching, but I wanted to reference the DNA program, which is really where we take our regular funding programs, flip them on their head, and say we're actually asking now organizations what kind of problems they're experiencing, and then we help match them with founders, both from within our cohort as well as external. So, shameless plug for our mailing list. That's the best way to stay up to date with all of our funding programs and to learn about any updates and new initiatives that CABI is involved with. Our acceleration services that's basically the bucket term for all the things we do that is not funding related. So we offer a lot of different supports that pull on our engagement with Baycrest, as well as our being tapped into a large network of end users, so older adults and caregivers. We have a large group of them that provide end user feedback for your solution once you're in our programs, and that's covered through our LEAP program, which is something you can learn about online as well, our older adult and caregiver community, which are all engaged and interested in providing feedback to innovators to make sure that they're building solutions that really matter and that speak to them. And then the Innovation Network is our other kind of key service where we can connect individuals looking to have their innovations adopted or to be piloted. And we have a large network of 200 plus senior care organizations across Canada and the US mostly, where we can make those introductions, help to facilitate those relationships, and ultimately hopefully lead to adoption and impact through those connections. So that's some of the stuff that we do. We also do things like discounts from third-party service providers and mentors. We can connect you with a student intern, all kinds of things that you would get access to through the Ignite program as kind of an add-on to the funding that you'd be receiving. So that is our pitch and how we support our companies and our research teams. And so this is just a bragging stat of all the different projects that we've funded and what they've been able to accomplish, where we've invested our funding, how many older persons, over 110,000 and counting, of individuals engaged in our projects and solutions introduced, over 150. So we really do have a wide range of different types of solutions. The aging and brain health space is a very broad space with a lot of momentum behind it. And so what constitutes an aging and brain health solution might not always be what you might initially think, right? Things like fintech solutions to support financial health later in life, women's health solutions that help support women who are predominantly the caregivers of older adults with dementia. Those kinds of solutions tie into our mandate, and we're increasingly pulling on kind of diverse innovations with a bit more of a broad tie-in to our mandate as well. So this is a little bit of a glimpse of some of the impact that we've created, but now we're going to zoom in on the Ignite program. And so the Ignite program is 1 year old at this point. So this is our second generation of Ignite, our second version of the program that we're launching. And basically, the program is non-dilutive funding, so $50,000 to $150,000 over a 12-month period to advance the innovative solution, whatever that means. That obviously is going to look different for a digital health solution compared to a biotech solution, compared to a lifestyle intervention, right? So it's 50K to 150K with a focus on research and development. So again, that's going to look very different, but we really look to see where that funding can go and how it can create the most impact for promising teams that really have unique and novel intellectual property or innovative solutions, new approaches to care. And then ultimately, our goal is to get these solutions into the hands of the people who need them the most. We're not focused specifically on research outcomes. We're focused on impact and getting these solutions into the real world. So that's where we focus with our funding at this stage. And as I mentioned, there's a number of non-monetary supports to foster growth and success within these companies, as well as to build capacity within the teams that are working on them. And so that's a little bit about the Ignite program. And so, why are we doing this program? Really, we are trying to drive the development and validation of these early stage innovations, ensuring that they're safe, effective, and impactful, right? So in a lot of ways, this program is meant to de-risk for further investment or to de-risk purchase decisions down the road. And it's a drop in the bucket of the amount of research and development capital that's really required to bring a lot of these solutions to market. But working with you as a partner over a 12-month period, working with our first cohort, we've been able to see, unbelievable momentum and progress. We'll share a few of those impact stories as well, but encourage you to read up on our website about our past cohort and maybe check in on some of those companies and research teams to see what they've been able to accomplish. It's really amazing. I think the cohort connections that have also been made within the first program has been a real success story coming out of the program because it is a challenging space, but sharing these experiences has been a really powerful thing for innovators to be connected through. And so within the Ignite program, I wanted to touch on a couple of key components. So there's the custom learning series, which is a monthly webinar, basically, where we bring in key partners who talk about all things from, IP declaration to, setting up your corporate structure to understanding the age tech investment space, how to pitch your investment or pitch your company for investment at a certain stage, how to partner and collaborate, medical device certifications, all kinds of different supports. And that's all decided by you as the Ignite cohort. We take kind of inventory of what areas individuals are looking to learn about, and then we build custom learning series around those kind of challenge points or those areas where our innovators are interested in learning more. And then those partners that provide that learning series actually become eligible for utilizing them as consultants or to be reimbursed towards kind of, side initiatives if you're looking to, gain some kind of regulatory approval or understand a pathway to market. You can work with any of those kind of consultants that we have through our learning series with an additional stipend that we offer to Ignite projects. So things like that, end user engagement, like I mentioned. There's networking opportunities with other CABI innovators, things we do locally, events, collision days all across Canada. We've had a lot of different innovation showcases over the last several years. And the real value, obviously, in bringing these communities together is what we try to foster to make the innovation journey feel a little bit less lonely. And at the end of the project, and this is something that we're getting close to in the first round, is that the top participants, which is basically saying everyone from the program who's completed their project scope of work, will get a chance to pitch and apply for additional investment through our Fuel program. So that next stage. So there is an opportunity to jump straight from Ignite into Fuel. If you're not selected through that process, you can still come in through the main door through Fuel, but we anticipate, always bringing in at least two, maybe three or more projects from the Ignite program into Fuel to kind of see that end-to-end journey continue. So that's a little bit about what the program looks like. Program objectives, won't spend too much time on this, but obviously we're looking for breakthrough innovation, not quality improvement. We're looking for things that can really change the way that we're experiencing some of these challenges and things that can move the needle on how we're able to, better care for and improve the quality of life for older adults and persons with dementia. And that includes early detection and treatment options and things like that. So that's really what we're looking for. Moonshots, big ideas. Developing, attracting, retaining talent. We're trying to make the age tech space a fun and exciting place for especially new graduates, early career researchers to want to spend their time. There's a lot of focus on ecotech and fintech, but age tech is where there's a huge opportunity as well. And so we want to see innovators kind of bringing the new workforce into into their projects as well. So amplifying the project impact, knowledge exchange, what happens in this project isn't just about supporting the individual goals of the applicant. It's about, expanding and broadening the knowledge base for end users as well as for other innovators and policymakers. So the more, knowledge artifacts, the more, positive news stories, the more research that you're creating through your project, the better. And then the final objective, more of an operational objective, is to advance these high potential projects from the Ignite program into Fuel, into DNA and beyond. So that's why we do the programs. Zooming in a little bit on the eligibility. So for Ignite, there's actually two different streams, and this is the case for the fuel program as well. So the first question that you get asked after your kind of summary in the application is, what stream are you applying to, right? And it's fairly self-explanatory usually. You're either a company, which is you're registered federally or provincially within Canada, and or you're a healthcare slash research organization, so HCRO stream. And so generally, if you're one of the other. Sometimes there are some fringe cases. Sometimes applicants are from the research organization and they're in the process of incorporating, and we recommend just apply for the organizational status or the incorporation status that you currently have at the time. It may be the case that we need to jump you between the different streams, but apply for what's true in the actual moment. And so looking at both of these different streams, there are slightly different eligibility criteria, and also the form does change as you're filling it out based on what you select. So certain questions will appear or disappear based on which stream you're applying to, because we're accepting both streams, but we're not comparing them against each other. They are kind of discrete streams in the way that we look at and evaluate them. But so for the company stream, we're looking for obviously registered and eligible in Canada, that they would raise less than $1 million in total funding, and that their valuation or valuation cap is less than 6 million. If you don't know what that is or you don't have that yet, then don't worry about it. That means that you're probably on the correct side of it. So you don't have to consider that in your application. And with annual revenue of less than $250,000 in Canadian. So that's what puts you into our early stage stream where you're looking at Ignite. If you're beyond some of those metrics, then you'd be looking at Fuel. On the HCRO side, you would have to be a Canadian academic institution or working at Canadian academic institution, so a university or a college, or at a recognized research or healthcare organization, a hospital, research institute, long-term care, anything that provides care, clinical support to older adults and our target population. The applicant would have to host or hold a position at the affiliated institution because they would be the ones receiving the funding. So there would have to be a formal connection between that. So there's some additional eligibility criteria listed online. We talk about TRL level 2 to 6. You can learn about the tech readiness levels if you're not too familiar, but the sweet spot is something there's some work that's gone into it. It's beyond the concept stage, but it maybe hasn't been introduced into practice yet. There's kind of some research and development that's still taking place, and that would be the goal of this program and this funding would be to bring it into the real world. But so that 2 to 6 TRL level is what we're looking for with the HCROs. With the company stream, we don't care about TRL. It still is something that we collect just because we like to understand where things are at, but the solution maturity is only an eligibility criteria for the HCRO streams. That's a important delineation between the two streams. As far as what can be accomplished with the funding, this is a question that we get a lot. When we say research and development, again, that means something different to different types of innovators, but this is generally what we mean. We don't ask for a full budget to be produced at this stage in the application, but we do ask what kinds of activities broadly would you be looking to accomplish or complete with the funding. These are some of the things that you could use that funding towards. If you're unsure of what you're using the funding for, or if it would be eligible, you can always shoot us a note. But these are the things that we would generally be helping you to build a budget at the time that you're awarded. And you would have to be, spending the vast, vast majority of your funding, 80% plus on these kinds of activities. There can be a smaller amount reserved for things like knowledge translation, conference attendance and sharing and your message, or some commercialization objectives, but the vast majority goes towards this kind of activity and producing R&D style outputs as part of the program. Our priority themes I wanted to touch on a little bit, just because we do have our priority themes listed. And actually realizing I'm missing one, but I'll call it out as well. It's listed online, but we have aging in place, solutions that support older adults to age in the most appropriate setting of choice. It might be home, might be in a care environment, but solutions that help them to be empowered to choose and remain independent in that place for as long as possible. Caregiver support, both formal as well as informal caregivers, are covered under this category. Care coordination and navigation. It's a very complicated health system, and so tools that can help caregivers as well as older adults and anyone in the care circle to access and navigate the system as easily and seamlessly as possible. Cognitive and mental health, so both to treat at the later stage as well as to identify at the earlier stage, to mitigate risks of worsening or declining cognitive function. There's a lot of really exciting examples, different ways to identify and understand how to track and mitigate the decline of cognitive function later in life. And so we're interested in any way that that can be accomplished or understood better. Financial health and wellness. We talk about the reliance upon pension or post retirement funds become quite scarce, and so how do we empower older adults to be financially independent through as long as possible. Supports to prevent scamming and financial fraud that disproportionately targets older adults, is becoming an increasingly high priority area for us. So those kinds of solutions are really interesting, and we don't actually get very many applications relative to the other categories as we do with that. So we're always looking for interesting financial health and wellness solutions. The one that's not listed there is women's brain health and aging, and so specifically solutions that address women's aging and brain health and the unique progression of having to manage certain health conditions that are specifically experienced by women, as well as femtech solutions, so solutions that address the experience women's health issues or challenges, that especially ones that tie into increasing risk of dementia or cognitive decline later in life. So those are the priority themes, and so you'll pick one in your application and then write a little bit of a justification as to how your solution ties into those priority themes. And then we have our cross-cutting themes, which are themes that we basically want to understand how your solution may address one of these different areas. It's not mandatory, but things like diversity, accessibility, health equity, as well as social inclusion, preventing stigma, elder abuse. If there's a unique play or some way that you're able to make a tie into one of those, it's always interesting to understand that, because that is part of our mandate as well. So it's, again, not mandatory. It's not something that you'll be penalized for not having, but it can stand to strengthen your application if you have a real direct tie-in to one of those cross-cutting themes or both. So that's a little bit about the scoring. Yeah, so the scoring criteria are these four categories. We have our solution, and the solution impact is 40%. That includes the problem that you're addressing, and how prominent it is, and how unique this solution is, and how well it could or does work relative to the target population. We're looking at the team qualifications, of course. Do you have a board of directors, and do you have a mentorship network? Do you have outside supports, people embedded within your team that understand the end user and their experience? That's part of the team qualifications. You don't have to have all of them. You don't have to be a big team. We actually prefer if you're, a small and agile team, but we want to make sure that whatever types of expertise that you do have required to be successful in your product category, that you have those qualifications within your ranks. The market opportunity is this, it doesn't necessarily have to be a large and, substantial market, and that you're trying to take a large chunk of that. But when we look at market opportunity, we're thinking, is this something, don't say aging, right? The aging market, that's not market, that's just a concept. Be very specific here. And that's a really key, piece of advice is when you're asked in the application to talk about, who your target users are, be specific. It's better to have a real clear understanding and to explain, what your personas look like here, as opposed to just trying to broad brush all older adults or caregivers as having the same needs, because they don't. And so, the market opportunity, how kind of pressing is the issue that this market is facing? How well does your solution address that? And then obviously we're looking at things like financial potential market capture rates and different metrics that would indicate that there's a market here, and that this a commercial opportunity stemming from that market. And then the final piece is the project plan, where ultimately we're looking to see, are the funds going towards a use that could have impact for the company or the research team? are they in alignment with the goals of the program? To think back a few slides, about generating, new evidence and generating new outputs of research and innovation and transformative IP and drawing in a, new generation of workers to be interested in age tech. So the project plan, and then also just having a concise and clear and realistic 12-month project plan. And we don't go into too much detail asking you about it, but just articulating the main milestones that you'd be looking to use CABI funding to accomplish. So the application process looks like this. The application is open right now. It is closed as of 5 p.m. on December 5th. That's Eastern time. After that, we will announce the shortlisted applicants probably towards the end of December, around the holidays, and then you'll be notified that you are or are not invited to participate in the interview stage, which would take place in the first week back in January. Depending on the number that we do shortlist, which kind of depends on a few different factors, those dates might shift or expand a little bit, but that's generally the date range. And so you'll be given an interview time slot. You can let us know if it doesn't work, but we do ask that you keep that week open if you're planning to apply, or have someone from your team that can attend the interview. And that's where we would have our panel of externals kind of asking any questions, things that were unclear from your application, and kicking the tires on some of your assumptions, trying to understand if there's a good fit there, as well as understanding or assessing how well you seem to understand the end user's perspective. We'll have a member from our end user advisory committee on that interview as well. So that's basically what that process looks like. They're very friendly. Don't have to worry about a Dragon's Den situation, but they're trying to just understand, fit and kind of challenge any assumptions or ask any questions of things that were unclear at that stage. But that's what that process looks like. At the end of January, we will notify awardees as well as the unsuccessful applicants. And then the project would take place starting March 1st, 2026, and running for 12 months until the end of February 2027, which seems like a very long time away, but it comes up quick. So that is the application process at a glance. I'm going to show very quickly just what the application form looks like and try to see if we've got any questions or comments to address in the meantime. So this is what the application form looks like. You can go through it, and as you're going through, you can save your progress at any time, and then that will generate a unique link that you can then copy and share with your team. And that's basically the way that you can share. We do recommend having an offline copy. We've had some horror stories of in the 11th hour, the link doesn't work or things like that. So please do keep an offline copy. One thing I'll call out is just, our executive summary is a new feature that we've added. It just kind of helps put everything into one short passage or a video. I'll say we actually would, we won't penalize you for not doing a video, but we do love videos. We love to have just a chance to get to know the applicant, the team. It doesn't have to be produced in any kind of professional capacity, but even just a webcam video of you introducing yourself, talking about your solution, why you're choosing to solve this particular challenge experienced, who's on your team, what do you want to do through CABI support. Sounds like a lot in 60 seconds, but just a quick introduction that kind of sets up the rest of your application, either through video or through a written passage, is a new feature that we've added for this, just to kind of summarize and put everything in one place. Again, based on the questions that you, or based on the selection that you put here between company and HCRO, different questions will appear. So make sure that you know what stream that you're a part of, and then it'll basically take you all the way down to the end. And so at the very end, we ask just some questions around helping to inform the learning series that we have being kind of created for the next cohort, things like that. But any questions about specific questions that we're asking, you can always shoot us an email, ignite@cabi.com, and we'll try to get back to you as soon as possible with those kinds of questions. Excuse me. So that's pretty much what we're looking at as far as the application overview. Three quick insights, and this is your reward for being on the call today, is just some things that we always, look for, or the reviewers ultimately look for. three quick tips. So making a clear tie into dementia in your application, even if it's painfully obvious, I think just making that case clear, especially in the area where we're talking about, how does it tie into the priority theme? CABI has a real organizational focus on dementia and, cognitive decline and supporting both persons living with dementia as well as preventing dementia. We have a whole bunch of different, diagnostics and treatments. It doesn't have to be one of those, but even if you're, say a lifestyle intervention or something that prevents falls or, reduces readmission rates and things like that. How does this tie into dementia? All of it does, but just show in your application that you've considered that because that is a really key area for what CABI is interested in. And how does that, kind of set your project up? Does that is that something that you're looking to investigate maybe more? Is your solution and how it might be relevant to dementia in a more substantive way? So make sure that you have the word dementia in there at least once, preferably more. So the second thing, be specific about what challenge you're addressing. I touched on this a little earlier, but when we ask you to describe the challenge that your solution addresses, please don't say, stats on dementia or stats on aging. We know those things. That's a very broad stroke, and we appreciate, trying to set up the discussion as to why your solution is going to be impactful, but forget all that stuff because it's in every application, and we already know that there's a big societal need here. Be very specific. What part are you taking on and why? Don't just kind of default back to the aging demographic and how that's creating an opportunity. Focus in on a specific segment of that, even geographically or socioeconomically. Focus on a very specific target population. That's a huge piece of advice right there. And I mentioned this before, but use videos and media to stand out. Like this isn't a traditional grant review process where everything is kind of standard and formatted in the same way. We want to see things kind of stand out and help us get a sense of the teams that we're working with, right? So use media, use different kinds of things to help us get a better sense of your innovation and your team. And that's pretty much what we want to see. And we won't penalize you if you don't use the video feature, but it's always nice to get to know the team. So that is pretty much it. I'm going to get some of the questions maybe now, and I think I'm able to see those here if I'm able to. And we'll, just put up kind of the specific question can be sent to, if it's about CABI, you can send to info@cabi.com. If it's Ignite, you can send it to ignite@cabi.com if it's more about the program. Getting a few questions here. Sorry, I'm not able to see the questions on my screen, so I'm having Rhea is helping me out by sending them to me over Slack. So perfect, we got a few of them going in. So the PowerPoint slides will be available. Yes, this is all being recorded. And so you can review this, or we can just post the slides online as well. So no problem there. Am I able to share how many applications we expect, the number? So yeah, we can say that the first round we had 170 applications, which is quite a bit, and we ended up funding 23 with different amounts, and so that is a bit of a benchmark that we can use, but it is dependent upon a few other things in terms of our funding budget looks a little bit different every year. So I wouldn't take that as kind of an indicator. We've also tightened some of the criteria, I would say. So if you're eligible, you stand a better chance. 170 applications, not all of them, certainly not all of them, maybe closer to half of them were eligible. So if you're following along and you're thinking that this program seems to be describing your company, then or team, then you're already in a good spot. So the target number of awards is a little bit tricky because it depends on how many projects ask for how much and things like that. But I don't think it'll be bigger than our first cohort, I'll say, of 23. It's probably going to be around that or a little bit smaller, just to give a sense. So the company stream, does that accept applications from not-for-profit organization with annual revenues under $250,000? Yes, that would be considered to be eligible. If you don't fit into the other category, then yes, the non-for-profit non-for-profits can apply through the company stream as well. Um, the save button on the website for the application, where is that? It should appear just as you're going through the application. You click Save Progress, and then that generates the URL, a unique URL in your URL bar, and you can just copy and paste that URL. So if you have any issues with the tech side of things, just shoot us a note, and we can always see the application saved on the back end and send you the link as well. So is it dementia specifically, is the next question. Is it dementia specifically, or are other forms of cognitive decline also considered? So other forms of cognitive decline can be considered. We do have a special focus on dementia and older adults. And so, things like Parkinson's fit in very well to that area, right? Even though that's not specifically dementia. So short answer is yes, but not all, I guess. I don't know if I could think of one that isn't, considered to be within scope of our reach, but I would say, there should be some tie-in to cognitive decline and aging, neurodegeneration and aging specifically, because that is our mandate. So that's a good question there. What criteria do you use to determine the top candidates that make it to the FUEL program? So very good question. We're going through this process for the first time right now. So if you're selected through Ignite and you make it to the end of that program and you're applying to be part of FUEL, we're looking at basically two things. What have you accomplished during your project? Have you hit all the milestones that we've set out? Have you, incurred the funds the way that you intended to? And then the second thing, which is probably, just as important, if not more, but what progress or momentum do you have outside of the CABI project? Are you generating interest? Is there proof of impact? Are there, strong anecdotes or testimonials of success? Are you starting to generate a little bit more buzz potentially from other funding sources or investors? So there's, a number of different things, but really we're looking for the standout performers. And also a really clear use of funds, right? Because with the FUEL program, you're going to have up to $400,000 in funding. And so you might be really successful, but also tell us, what do you want to use that funding for? And how does that show that it's a good fit? So that's what the FUEL program would be looking for. Let me just see what other, we'll get through a couple more, and then any other questions. Lots of questions rolling through. Any other questions that we don't get to, I'll maybe just do a couple more. Please do follow up over email to ignite@cabi.com, and we'll be happy to share our more specific answer. I'm looking for kind of some more general questions to speak to. Is there a quota number of awards for each stream? Nope. It's really kind of based on a couple of things, like the volume of application in each stream we use as an indicator to determine how many successful projects are pulled from each stream. Does grant money from other sources count as revenue? Nope. That would be considered non-dilutive funding. And so there's a different field that we ask about grant money and other kinds of investments that aren't private investment or not revenue. So good question as well. Does how much funding you're asking for affect success rate? I would say it's very unlikely, because basically we'll take the top ranked projects, we'll drag the filter all the way down to how many we can afford. And if you're, say 12th place and we're, only able to fund the first 11, and the 12th one is you, and, you would put us over budget, then maybe having a smaller ask would be beneficial, but only in that specific scenario would asking for less really impact your chances of being selected. So not really, but only in that very rare scenario. So ask for, the amount that you think is going to be most impactful to supporting your solution. Don't try to game the system too much with that, but very good question. Let's look with maybe just one or two more. Yeah, so who are the reviewers and what is their background? It would be helpful to know given the broad swath of companies applying. Yeah, very good question. So it's a mix of both internal and external reviewers. We have internal team members who are looking more about like program fit, eligibility, those kinds of things, and setting the table for our external reviewers, who are really our expert reviewers who come from areas of science and technology and IP and regulatory. And so we kind of create a custom group of 3 to 4 reviewers around the specific subject matter of each application. So the team of reviewers that looks at a digital health solution will be different from one that's looking at a biotech solution. So those review teams will change based on what we need, or sometimes will be more heavily weighted towards certain groups. But very good question. We do have a large network, about 5 or 6 individuals that we pull on at a time, but we have a broader, say like an application comes through that none of those 5 or 6 reviewers really have much insight to. We might pull on our broader network as well. So really good question. Last question I'll take. So what would be the timeline for funds disbursement? Would it be distributed evenly through March 26 to February 27? Good question. So it's 90% upfront. We give 90% of the funds at the time that the contract is signed. So you would have that in your account in March 26. And then the final 10% holdback is issued at the very end of the project once we've received the final report along with the financial report. So it is very front loaded because a lot of the costs of R&D take place upfront. So really great questions, guys. Thanks so much. You've been a very attentive audience, even though I can't see you. Please do shoot me an email or shoot an email to our ignite@kabi.com. If you didn't get your question answered today, thank you so much for joining, spending your lunch hours with us, or wherever you may be joining in from. And we will post this recording online for you to watch back should you so choose. So thank you again, everybody, and hope you enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.